Hey guys, how you doing? Just left the terminal this morning. I was there last night to drop off the student. I wasn't going to be able to train him. I'll give you the reasons why, but you know, on a personal level, the guys are pretty cool. On a working level, we're in two different levels on that part. You know, his way of working and my way of working are two different ones, and you know, I'll tell you why. For starters, he doesn't have initiative. You know, I told him from the beginning, you know, I like to see people that have initiative. You know, you come out here, get your CDL, show me that you want your CDL. Show me that you want to practice, you want to do this, you want to do that. Anything that involves the CDL, you know, learning process, show me that you want to do this, you know, because if you don't, you know, I'm not going to waste my time, you know, in training you or training anybody that comes out here that gets their CDL or wants their CDL. It doesn't show they want their CDL. So that was a reason. And I told him from the beginning, I said, look, man, I want you to show initiative that you want to do this. Show me that, all right? Number two, he's a person that I guess it's hard to get up in the morning. He even said it himself, you know, there's a couple mornings that I asked him, I said, look, man, set your alarm, we'll get up early, do pre-trips, because this is what I usually do. It's do pre-trips before we start our shift, and then go ahead and go on, you know. So the first morning, I said, set your alarm, whatnot. You know, he didn't get up. You know, already that's a no. You know, in my books, if you don't get up when you're supposed to get up, that's a big no. In my books, at least, you know, in my truck. So I said, all right, you know, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's just his first day, why not? I can understand. Second morning, I do the same thing. I said, we get up early, you know, and same thing. He didn't get up. He was dragging out of bed, you know, walking at his own pace and stuff. And I said, no, I can't do this. You know, it's like a new job. You get a new job, you're going to be at work on time, you know. So if you're going to be on work on time, because you really want to work, you really want the job, all right? He wasn't showing that, and that to me, that's a big thing in this. You come out here, I ask you to get up early for whatever reason. Of course, in this case, it's to do pre-trip. He doesn't get up. So if you don't get up, that right there alone tells me a lot. And he even said it himself. He said, oh, I'm used to working at my own pace and stuff. I'm not used to getting up and going and just kind of doing my own thing. Well, buddy, you out here to get your license. I'm out here to show you. Come on, man. Get up. You know. So those were the things that triggered me to get him off the truck or not be able to train him. Because if you can't get up early in the morning, that just says a lot about a person, you know. So you know, so that right there was like, no, you know, it's not going to work out with me. Another thing, he likes to do his pre-trip at his own thing. You know, I gave him a worksheet to study. Prime gave him a worksheet to study. And then I said, use mine. We're going to do this, all right? He said, I'm going to use their sheet. I'm already giving you a better system to work with. And you're telling me you want to use theirs. Fine, whatever, you know. Well, in the process, while we're driving, well, he's sitting on the passenger side. The least he could be doing is studying your pre-trip. I don't usually tell my students study your pre-trip because I'm not here to babysit. You know, you should be able to know that. You should be able to know that. Come out here, study that as much as you can. During the driving, I told him one time, I said, go ahead and study that pre-trip. His response was, I'm good, man. I've been watching YouTube videos before I came here. I know this stuff. I know how to do my pre-trip. And that right there was the winner, the cherry on top, as you would call it. That right there was, all right, we're gonna get to California, make this delivery, and then come back to Springfield. I just had to find the right time to talk to him and tell him about it, you know, because he needed to understand why. I told him why, and again, he said he understood, you know, why I was doing it, and he knew that he does that and stuff. So that right there, you drag out of bed, man. You can't come out here and be dragging out of bed, man. You come out here to get your CDL. Show initiative. Show me that you want this, and have that want and desire in you, that fire, man. Like, come on, man. You don't need a firecracker to get you going. I mean, so that's what triggered me to just say, take him back to the terminal, let somebody else train him. I'm not going to be able to train him. You know, there's a lot more to this than just driving. You know, you guys seen the driving part. And on top of that, he said he wanted to use the cruise control. I don't let my students use the cruise control because I want them to have full control of the truck on the gas and the brake. All right, no cruise control during the PSD in my book. No radio, because I want them to be concentrating on looking at their mirrors and stuff, looking at their signs. So no cruise control, no radio. You know, we can sit here and conversate, you know, have conversations while we're still looking at our mirrors and road signs and whatnot, keeping the truck in the lane. And on top of that, I don't allow them to use a GPS. You know, it seemed like he had a problem with that at the beginning, with the GPS and the cruise control. GPS, I'm gonna tell you, I'm your GPS. I'm gonna tell you which way to go, which way to, you know, what turns to make and what not. For one, I need you to be paying attention to the signs. And two, listening to me. You know, if you can't follow simple directions, I don't know, man. You know, this is a big truck. You know, a lot can happen if you don't pay attention. So he said that from the beginning. He was about cruise control and about GPS because he said he was a cab driver. Regardless of what you do back home, guys, you know, I guess it's just me. A lot of people are into this GPS and having the GPS in the quad. The GPS that I have in my truck is a TomTom. It's a car GPS. You know, it's not even a truck GPS. So why would you even follow it? I don't know, but you know, I don't allow it. So those are some of the things that, well, those are the three things that I overlooked at the beginning when I interviewed him. The cruise control, GPS, and the radio. You know, the radio, he didn't have a problem too much about that. But the cruise control and the GPS, he was like, oh, I need to have it. You know, I can't drive without it. I was willing to oversee that and say, all right, well, you know, I'm sure you can get over that. But, you know, throughout this whole phase, the couple of days he was with me, he was constantly talking about it. He was constantly talking about automatic trucks, you know, like, you know, how he wish he had an automatic because a manual's too much work. Man, a manual transmission is better. I told him that. You know, better in the way that if you learn to drive in a manual transmission, you can drive any truck. If you learn to drive in an automatic, That's all you're gonna know how to drive, automatic. When you get your license and you go back home and look for a job, you may not get a job. You may, but most likely you won't, because some of the companies haven't adapted to the new system of having automatic trucks. But that's just my point of view. You know, and I tell my students, if you don't understand something, tell me. You know, but you know, the times that you guys seen him, that you guys say he was quiet and whatnot, you know, he was probably trying to compute that and see what was going on. But you need to tell me, look, you know, I don't understand or anything, because if you don't say nothing, all I can do is assume that you're okay with what I'm asking you to do, or telling you what to do, or, you know, telling you, or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So that was another thing that I was willing to oversee at the beginning, the language. You know, his English is not, it's good, but, you know, it was just, you know, he was from Haiti, so I was willing to see that stuff, oversee that stuff. So I brought him in the truck. But once we got here, you know, he was, I guess, more worried about eating breakfast. And I'm not saying not to eat breakfast, but if you want to eat breakfast and you know you're going to drag your butt out of bed, get up earlier. If we got to get up at 6 and you have to do all that and it takes you that long, get up at 5, man. You know what I mean? But don't get up at 6:30 and then expect me to do stuff with you. When you get up at 6:30, go to wash up, and then come back, it's already 7. It's time to roll, man. You know, I'm already getting up an hour early studying preacher with you. You know, but you know, it's one of those things that I'm just not gonna deal with it. You know, a lot of people, you know, have expectations, and I'm one of them. I expect you to come over here, show me that you want this. I expect you to come over here to want this, want to pre-trip, want to learn this stuff. You know, don't have me keep telling you to keep your hands on the wheel. Don't have me keep telling you to watch your mirrors. You know, watching the mirrors is a lot, because you're watching the trailer. You know, another thing he had was just swaying. You know, not swaying, but he would go back and forth on the lane, and I used to always have to tell him, watch your lane, watch your trailer, man. You know, because, you know, a couple times he went out the lane, and luckily there was nobody on the left, you know, on the driver's side, because if there was, it wouldn't have been good. I probably wouldn't be here making this video. But, you know, that's the thing that I tell him, and that's why I'm pushing him. Watch your trailer. You know, people say, oh, you bossy, this and that. Hey, man, you call it what you want, but at the end of the day, you have to watch your trailer. You know, because I'm telling you for a reason. Watch your trailer. You know, the back is, you're starting to go to the left. You know, you want to jerk the wheel, then the back kind of whips. So you need to watch that. You know, last thing you want to do is the back of the trailer hit somebody. You know, keeping the hands on the wheel. You know, if you keep this truck in the middle, it's not hard to maintain there. It's just like a car. But if you want to start, you know, jerking the wheel and stuff, then yeah, you'll be going back and forth. And another thing too is, when I tell him to clutch out, I mean clutch it out. Hit the clutch, get it out of gear. You know, don't hit the clutch, ride the clutch, and think about what you're gonna do. You know, you have to clutch it out. We talked about this before we left the terminal, because we went out to the shifting range. We practiced a little bit. I felt comfortable with him, and I told him the rest will come once we get out there on the road. But, you know, it was just, you know, one of those things where I just can't do it. I won't do it, actually, you know what I mean? I told him, I said, maybe you'll find somebody that trains you at your pace. Highly doubt it. Maybe he will. And if he does, that's good for him. But I hear, man, time is money. It's either you go, or you sleep, and not make no money. You know, I'm a go-getter. I like to go get it. You know what I mean? I'm a go-getter. I told him. I said, look, man, you know, the first day I told him, I said, look, man, you got to walk faster, you know, show me, you know, the reason I was telling him walk faster is because show me that you want this, man. because I wasn't seeing it. I definitely was not seeing it. And to this day, after I dropped him off, you know, the guy at Prime called me up, you know, asking me what happened. I told him what happened, and he said, you know what, everything you've experienced this week, I've seen it today. And I told him, I said, I'm glad you seen it for yourself, because, you know, they want you to think that I was blowing smoke or whatever, you know, which I wouldn't do. But it's good when somebody else sees it. What's happening in the truck was, it was dragging. It was dragging his butt. I'm not here to drag nobody, you know. If you want to drag yourself around the terminal. That's what I got to say to that, you know. I'm here to do it. Pre-trip, driving, the backing. We didn't even get into the backing. We only did one pre-trip. I tell him, you're gonna have to change, man. You know, and this may not even be for you. I told him that, and he said he wants to do it, but you know, he's gonna have to change something, because, and I highly doubt he will, because if you're the type of person that you like to drag, man, it's gonna take a lot to change. At least that part, you know. Another thing is that, you know, I told him, and I told him these things from the beginning. I told him at the beginning before we left. I said, look, man, I need you to show me initiative. If you want this, we're gonna be doing pre-trips, we're gonna be doing backing. I need you to pay attention to your signs and your mirrors. That's one thing I tell all my students. Pay attention to your sign and your mirrors. That's a big thing. And 90% of the time, I had to tell him about his mirrors, and he wasn't even looking at the signs. So, you know, there was a lot more going on than what you guys seen. You know, I wish I would have recorded more, but I couldn't. You know, it was just too much. But just thought I'd let you guys know what was going on with him and why he got off the truck and not here no more. You know, he's gonna have to find another trainer. So hopefully he does. You know, I wish him luck. Just, I can't train him. I can't train somebody that's gonna come out here and wanna slack, man. Nah. If you come out here, you gotta be about it, man. You gotta be a go-getter, show initiative, show that you want this. This is long term. This ain't one of those things where you get it and you're good, and you know. And like I said, talk about purchasing a truck after you get your license, after you're done with training. Don't be asking questions about purchasing a truck and what's the surcharge and all this stuff. I mean, like I said, I don't mind you asking here and there, but when you're not doing a lot of the other things, then yeah, I do mind. But if you're doing other things, I know you're progressing pretty good or whatever, then yeah, you know, I don't mind talking about anything, because I know stuff is going to get done. But if you don't, then don't be asking stuff like that, man, you know. So I just wanted to give you guys an update on what's going on with him. I had to drop him off and go. I'm on a hot load. I'm in Tennessee now, so headed down to Florida. Drop this off, and like, subscribe, share, comment, dislike, you know, whatever. Just, I'm all ears, you know, because this is what it's about. I'm out here to show you what it's like, you know. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that, and I hope you guys have a good day, and until next time, I'll keep doing other videos. I know somebody asked for a video for the tandems. I still have to do an in-cab video and the air brake video, which I'm gonna get to that as soon as I figure out how to position my camera here for the in-cab, and then we'll go from there. But all right, guys, the next time, have a